Excellent. Appreciate it. It's all right. There's some things you can never shake. One is your nickname. Others are traditions you start. But it's all good. I just want to mention, I loved Pastor Rob's mention of the one another statements, because we need to learn to one another as Christ one another us. And that's actually what I'm talking about tonight, is how to one another better. I know, how amazing. God works like this. No, that's right. So that's what I'm talking about. We've been going through, if you've been here for the last month, we've had the Happy Life series. And I hope you've enjoyed the Happy Life series. And I get to do a standalone message tonight. It's not following that series. But it got me thinking about the happy life. What makes you happy? One of the things that makes me happy is when I get a new outfit. Girls, you with me? Yeah? That's right. Guys, are you with me? You're with me too. I don't know. I'm putting it out there. I'm getting in touch with my feminine side. I really like it when I get a new outfit. I get a bit of a spring in my step. I feel I can take on the world. And I understand how some people can get these shopping bugs and they just keep shopping because it makes you feel good. But and it says happy wife, happy life. That's where that whole thing came in. But tonight I want to talk to you about follower fashion. Follower fashion. So I've got to do my best blue steel. From Zoolander. Sorry, for those of you over there. There we go. Have the blue steel, it's out there. Follower fashion. Because definition of a disciple is actually a follower. And we're about to go through and see some people be baptized a little bit later, and they're choosing to stand up and say, I'm going to follow Jesus for the rest of my life. They're making a public declaration of that. But what does that mean? What does it look like? And should it be fashionable? Should we be worried about what we wear? Well, I think we should. Because whenever someone follows something, you can tell who they follow by what they're wearing, by the fashion that they have. Now, I need a bit of interaction right now. I'm going to put up some pictures on the screen in a minute. I need you to tell me who these people are following. So guys, can I have the first one, Ethan? Who are these guys following? That was actually, I thought there was going to be a lot more of a cheer than that. All right, what about the next one? Come on, be nice. I was going to put up a picture of just a head with no teeth, and I think you still would have got it. But that's okay. Sorry. All right, who have we got next? This might be a bit harder. We're Victorians. You're going to have to think outside of Victoria. The Reds. It's the Queensland Reds. If you're into the rugby, these are the pretty much indomitable force at the moment. Who's the next one we have up? Okay, who can pick who these guys are? Come on, Jason. England, it's a part of the Barmy Army. These guys have actually become a little bit quiet after the last test. They were very noisy the first test, a bit quieter now. What about the next one? Okay, different sport altogether, motorsport. We've got Ferrari. And I know these guys don't follow the mafia, the F1 Ferrari team, all in the red with the prancing pony. But it's not just sports people who are identified by what they wear. Religious people are also identified by what they wear. So let's see if you can guess who these people follow. Next one. Come on. That's a Hindu person. So someone follows Hindu. Next one. These boys. Buddhist. Yep. Next ones. Bit different, harder. This is a Taoist. So it's Japanese. And so religious people. So what should Christians wear? What does a Christian look like? I've got a few options for you. The Bible was obviously written 200 years or 2,000 years ago. So we have the first one come up. We could dress as the people did in Jesus' time. Hessian sacks, a little bit itchy, might not suit the Australian climate, but we could do it. Could be done. Is this what we should wear? More modern version. The nuns have it. Perhaps we have the priests have it as well. Got that one? You got the priests. So they're very well known figures to be known as Christians if you're wearing one of these habits. Unfortunately, that's one side of the scale. Then we have another side of the scale. Sometimes Christians are known for other things they may wear. Have a look at this photo. That's not the sort of image I like to be associated with. That's not something that I want to be representing who I am as a Christian. That's why when I saw this bumper sticker, I thought it summed it up perfectly. I've got nothing against God. It's just his fan club I can't stand. See, what we wear is very, very important because of who we follow. And it's unfortunate that a few can ruin the image for everyone. Those guys that were on there holding the placards, very small church, not even a church really, it's more of a cult. Under 100 people, but they have such a media presence that represents the rest of Christian faith badly, represents Jesus extremely badly. And we have to be very careful about the image that we put out there because of who we represent. You know what? Not all Collingwood supporters are bad. I married one. So I don't have to say that, but I will say that. But some can give them a bad reputation. But Jesus said this, by this you'll be known as my disciples, if you have love for one another. That's the one another statement. We'll be recognised by the love that we present to the world. I read this article this week from Relevant magazine, and it states this: the world should know that we are his disciples by our love. But Christians are instead characterised by judgment. We will not be known as disciples of Christ, but as hypocrites, much like the Pharisees that came before. The values of our culture are often in conflict with the values of our faith, but this isn't new. Many practices of the ancient world would be considered wholly unacceptable by society today. We are neither the first to live in an environment that challenges our beliefs, nor are we the first to disagree on theology. We were never commissioned to demand that secular culture reflect biblical belief. We were commissioned to reflect biblical principles in the middle of a secular society, pointing to God's redemptive story, and that's one of love. Mike Howell says this, that the gravitational pull of all religion, but we're Christians, so let's focus on Christianity, is always towards rule keeping over relationship development and maintenance. Rule keeping gets in the way of relational development. It gets in the way of loving one another. We need to stop being the moral police. We need to start standing up and stating, as Pastor Rob says, what we believe in rather than what we stand against. Mahatma Gandhi said, I like your Christ, but I don't like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ. But the good news is, so it's much easier to check things off a tick list, to be the moral police, than it is to love those that are hard to love. It's why we sort of go down that pathway. But we need to remember, the good news is Paul has given us some specific virtues that we can put on, some things that we can wear, and if we put them on each and every day, we'll start to love one another as we should love one another, as Christ loved us. So you get your Bibles, let's open them up. Come on, Colossians 3. I'm going to be reading from 1 through to 14. I'm going to skip around a little bit, but we're going to start Colossians 1. I like Paul's teaching because he takes what Jesus has said and he makes it really applicable and practical for your life. I think you can know the Bible back to front, and that's awesome, but you've got to be able to live it out in your everyday life. If you only have head knowledge and it can't come through your heart and it become what you live, then we're not actually being good examples of who Christ wants us to be. Paul actually said, follow me as I follow Christ. What he's saying is, don't just listen to what I'm preaching, I'm actually going to practice what I preach, and we need to also practice what we preach. It says this in verse 1, since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above. Right there I like it, he's giving us our direction where we need to look. Where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on the things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. It then goes on and gives a whole lot of things that we probably shouldn't do. That's that list that we sometimes come up with, and I don't want to focus on that tonight. So I just want you to come down to verse 9. It says, do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices and you've put on the new self. That's what we're about to see as we come around the baptism. Taking off of the old self and coming and putting on the new self. And I've got my old jacket here. I love this jacket. Pastor Rob thought someone just left it there. He's about to kick it away. Please don't. I have a lot of attachment to this jacket. I didn't put it on because my wife's very embarrassed of this. I'm not allowed to wear this down the street. This is now a strictly at-home jacket. It is, in fact, it's at home when she's not around jacket. It's full of holes. It's got stains all over it. It's lost all of its colour. It's not the jacket that it once was. It's fairly threadbare. It doesn't keep me as warm. But you know what? I love this jacket. I'm a little bit attached to it. But you know, there comes a time, and this is the example. It's not a pair of my old underwear. But There comes a time when you have to let go of things. You have to take certain things off in order to put new things on. I now have a new jacket at home. Keeps me much warmer. It doesn't have the holes. My wife's not embarrassed about it. I'm allowed to wear it in public. And I feel much better when I wear it. I don't feel so self-conscious. But this still has some attachment. But at the end of my message tomorrow, it has to go in the bin, apparently. It'll be gone. It's all right. Kathy will pray for me later. But sometimes before we can put things on, we need to take certain things off. There's a list of some things we're supposed to take off. But it comes in and says, so we've put on our new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of our Creator. What I like here is all of these things we've put off, and at this renewal, it's an ongoing process. It's a journey that we are on. It says later on in Scripture that we're to continue to work out our salvation. That we're not going to get it all right first time. So that's why I don't want to focus on that list that's in there of what we shouldn't do. But let's focus on actually what we should put on. Okay? Because we all know really well what we do badly, hey? I do anyway. He then goes on, he says, here there is no Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all and is in all. Therefore, here comes the fashion statement, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, with kindness, with humility, gentleness, and patience. And he gives us a list of 5 things that we're to put on each and every morning. I love the fact that he's got this analogy with things that we can actually put on. These are things we can acquire if we don't have them. But you know what? Sometimes when we put these things on, it can feel a little bit awkward. We're not sure how to wear them or where we should wear them. I remember when I was younger and I would allow my children to get dressed by themselves. They would come out in some of the funniest outfits ever. And were they appropriate for going outside in? Probably not. Did they care? No. They just got it, and they've learned to dress themselves over time so that they look smart, they dress appropriately. Sometimes, like Luke, not as much clothing as we'd want when it's on a cold day, but that's okay. They're learning what works for them. I know there's one child, friends of ours, and he always just has to wear a Batman suit. And right now, that's really cool. By the time he gets to high school, probably not so cool. He'll learn to change his dress as he goes. So Paul says we're to put some of these things on. The first one is compassion. So what is compassion? Compassion is when you feel what others are going through. It's not a head decision. It's actually not a head decision. When you first feel compassion for someone, it's like this, it feels it in the gut. In fact, when the Greeks talk about compassion, and if you translate it back then, it says loving someone with all of your guts. Not a really great picture, but it's loving someone with all of your guts, because that's where it comes from. When you feel compassion for someone, it comes out of here, and then you make a conscious decision of what you're going to do through your mind. It's not you should have studied harder, you should have worked harder, but it's showing that you feel their pain. Showing a person that you care regardless of what they've done. That's hard sometimes. Showing compassion regardless of whether or not they've listened to your advice on whatever it is that's just happened. The first time, the second time, or even the third time. Parents, you'll know that one well. It's showing compassion regardless of the fact if they've got it wrong or they could have actually prevented it from happening. I think it was so great to see us as a church last year to show compassion towards Andrew and Mayu. Could they have prevented it? Yep, absolutely. Did they deserve it? I don't know. Probably not. Can we show compassion? Yeah. Because God's a redemptive God. He's a God of second chances. He's a God who wants to restore things. And we need to be a community that does that reflects that wears that wherever we go. In order to do that, we have to stop making excuses for why we don't extend compassion. My wife reminded me, though, as I was preparing this message, that, Forbo, you don't always practice what you preach either. You haven't got this down pat. And you know what? She's right. Because sometimes I can do that really well in my day-to-day life. I can do it with people I encounter, but I can come home and sometimes I can be lacking in compassion towards my wife, towards my kids. But I'm working on it. I like the fact that she tells me that I don't do, so I can work on it. She's not here to disagree. Tomorrow morning I have to change, won't I? Yeah. But it's no mistake that this is the first garment that we're to put on. Because compassion, what it allows us is it allows us to overcome our selfishness. It allows us to overcome our prejudices. I preached a message a little while ago in Hebrews 10:24-25 says this. It said, let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds. The first part there is let us consider the other person. Let's consider where they're coming from. Compassion is the same. It's considering the other person and where they're coming from, stepping into their shoes rather than coming from your position of whatever that may be. If we can't show compassion, it's going to be very hard to demonstrate love. So we need to put on compassion. The second virtue that we're to put on is kindness. You know, growing up, one of the things I did not want to be called was kind. It's right up there with nice. He's a nice boy. I wanted to be tough. I wanted to be strong and macho. Definitely didn't want the girls to think I was kind or nice. That just wouldn't have gone down well. But then I heard this definition of what kindness is. Kindness is lending someone your strength, your ability, or your capacity. Lending someone your strength, your ability, your capacity. I think I can do that. It's extending yourself or loaning part of you to them for a period of time. It's doing it without something that you didn't have to actually ever do. That's what being kind is. Let's try to put on kindness. The third virtue that we are to put on, item of clothing, is humility. I should mention that all of these traits are in relation to other people. It's how we relate to the world. So humility is about seeing myself as I really am in relation to other people and towards God. It's with sober judgment, as the Bible says. It's to have an accurate view of myself in light to other people and to God. You know what that is? That is that I'm a citizen of humanity. That's it. In the passage you just read, it said that here there is no Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free. In other words, we are first and foremost sons and daughters of God. That is our first filter. Before my gender, before my race, before my class, before my culture, before the abilities I have or the circumstances I'm in, I'm a son of God. And you know, that changes my whole perspective, because if I was something else first, if I was male first, that would allow me to mistreat my wife and the women around me, because I would see myself through the male filter before I see myself through Christ. But I see myself through Christ first, which means I treat my wife with love and respect just as Christ has treated me. It allows me to sometimes love unconditionally. Humility is not thinking less about yourself, it's just thinking more about others. Paul says, I want you to put on humility. The fourth virtue that we're to put on, I like this one, it's gentleness. This is one of the words that I would have bridled against when I was younger, but to be gentle. Being gentle is a choice or a decision to respond to others in light of their strength or weakness rather than responding out of my strength. What that means is I'm deciding to come to your level of strength. So when I'm talking to a child, I come down and I look them in the eye and I talk to them. I don't stand over the top of them and tower and speak down to them just to prove how strong I am. I don't need to. They're a child. Coming down to their level of strength. It's adjusting my approach to the situation. Think about, and this is going to the guys, marking a football versus catching a bubble. When you mark a football, you're to run with your hands up and you run through the ball and you catch it and you go on. Trying to catch a bubble that the kids play with, I have to be very gentle and put my hand under it. I adjust my approach depending on the situation, on who I'm dealing with. Being gentle is not about who I am. It's not about what I've done or the job that I have. It's not about what I know. It's about assessing the situation and adjusting my approach. Being gentle means that my relationship with you is more important than you being impressed with me. Being gentle is my relationship is more important than you knowing how strong I am. Being gentle as my relationship with you is more important than you knowing my full capacity. I will adjust for your benefit. Paul wants us to put on gentleness. The fifth virtue we're to put on, and Pastor Rob, you're not going to like this one, because he said he's never going to preach on patience ever again. After last time he said, I'm not going to preach on patience. Well, just so you know, I'm not preaching on patience right now as you were preaching on patience. As I said, all of these traits are in relation to other people. So when it's talking about being patient, it's been talking about being patient with other people, not learning patience for yourself. Hallelujah. Being patient is just as simple as choosing to go at the speed of another person. There it is. Choosing to go at the speed of another person. Now, I've learnt this because when I was first started dating Anne, we decided to go cross-country skiing. I'd done a fair bit of cross-country skiing in my teenage years, and a few of my friends, we enjoyed doing it, and we got the girlfriends together and took them up to the snow, and it was Anne's first time to the snow. And we gave them a few instructions, got to Lake Mountain, hired all the gear, got them out onto the base of the first run where you sort of go up and then find all the rest of the trails that extend out. And I just said, well, this is how you do it. Sort of gave her a few tips. And I said, you behind me? You ready? Let's go. And then I took off up the hill. And I got to the top of the first part where all the trails, and I turned around and go, where's Anne? I didn't know where she was. A few of my friends started coming up over the hill. And I said, where's Anne? Oh, she's behind us. So go to the next one. Where's Anne? And the further down I got the hill, she was always behind them. And I got back and she was probably about 30 metres from where we'd started. And she'd obviously had a few falls because there was snow all over her. She was red-faced, not really impressed with me. And right there could have been the end of our relationship. Could have been. In fact, it still comes up in conversation. I didn't exude patience right there. I didn't wait to go at her pace. And unfortunately, that was probably the whole day I was sort of scooting ahead because I was so excited to be at the snow. Fortunately, my wife is patient. So she's now my wife. We're coming up to 18 years married, and I'm learning patience. A saying that encapsulates the benefits of being patient is this: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We are called to go together, to be unified, to be as a body, which means we have to learn to be patient with each other. It's really hard when you're in leadership because you can see things and you want to go places and you want to go faster than everybody else, but we want to take everyone with us. So we need to learn to be patient. And Paul finishes up this one. He says, bear with each other and forgive one another. There's another one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive. Not as someone might forgive you, but forgive as the Lord forgave you. That's hard. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. See, Jesus wants us to be known for how we treat each other, how we love each other. He doesn't care really what happens here on a Saturday night or Sunday morning. He's not interested in that, but it's how we outwork it in the world. Jesus wants us to be known what we stand for, not the fact that we can make a really good point. If it had been all about making a point, Jesus would have come, he would have made his point, and he would have left. But Jesus didn't come to make a point. He came to make a difference. And we will make a difference when we learn to clothe ourselves with compassion, with kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, and love. Let's put these on. Let's pray.